What is going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to show how to set up SQLAlchemy and Microsoft SQL Server, and how you can insert and retrieve data from SQL Server using SQLAlchemy. So, disclaimer before we jump right in, I would highly recommend doing this on a VM. Just when you're going to be doing SQL Server evaluation, unless you have SQL Server already installed and have a license. And when you do the uninstall, there's going to be a lot of things you're going to need to undo. So if you have a VM, you might want to take a snapshot of that now so you can revert back after you're done playing around or the evaluation period ends. With that out of the way, let's jump right in. So I have a VM here ready to go, and I'm just going to start that up. And get rid of that window. And this always seems to take longer when I'm recording. All right. So I do have Visual Studio Code already installed. Hopefully I already have Python here. I'll just double check. No, I don't. That's no matter. I'll just install it here real quick. And wasn't supposed to be a video on installing Python, but multiple users, you can do custom installation. Install now is just going to give it to your user, but always make sure add it to your path if you want to call it from the command line. While that's going, I'm just going to do SQL Server evaluation download. And we're going to be using 2019 and 64-bit edition. Now, before this was asking me for my first, last name, company size. I just put in my name, email address, company, put in student. So if you run into that, don't be dissuaded. Just go ahead and fill it out. And we're going to get that installing. And there are a lot of other tools, features you can install with SQL Server. We're just going to do basic and promise them our firstborn child. And here is where you would probably want to fire up a notepad and start copying and pasting these paths. If you're doing this on your host machine, just to make sure you get rid of everything once you uninstall, the evaluation period ends, etc. And while that's going, I'm going to check on the Python install. And close and reopen is always the easiest way. And we're going to go back and just relaunch that. Okay. Now there are two things we will need. We will need SQLAlchemy and we will need pyodbc. So pretty simple. Pip install SQLAlchemy. And I was actually looking to make this video a week or so ago, but I was running into issues with pyodbc. I have gotten it to work before, but previously they wanted you to install C++ or C compilers, things like that. It was really just confusing how to get that going. I came back to it and it just worked. I wondered what changed, so I went out here to PyPy, and you can see they have some recent releases. Going back here, I mean, you can read the documents. I'm not going to read it to you. It says, you know, it should just work on most versions. So maybe they pushed an update that made it better. Who knows? But if you run into issues, I'll show you that here. You're going to want to make sure you have the versions shown here of SQLAlchemy and pyodbc installed. So those should work if future versions should break. So if I do a pip freeze, you'll see I'm on version 5.01 and I have 2.0.22 for SQLAlchemy. And I'll put these down in the comments if you want to throw them into a requirements text file and install it that way. And let's see how our install's going here. Just to get a jump on what else we might need, I'm going to download SQL Server Management Studio. And that is a great tool for interacting with SQL Server databases. One of the advantages of proprietary software is usually they're a little bit more polished than, say, you were using something like pgadmin for Postgres, or the other one I believe is Toad. All right, that seems to be crawling a little bit. And I think this may take 4 or 5 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and oh, there is one other thing we will need that will take a bit of time. We will want pandas. Okay, that wasn't so bad. It was about 5 minutes to install SQL Server. And again, if you're going to uninstall later, well, that's not a path. You're going to want to copy and paste these to the notepad so you know what directories you can delete after you run the uninstall. We already started installing Management Studio, so this will just take you to that web page. And I minimize my VM. There we go. Okay, so we can go ahead and close that. Yep, that's fine. It's a little odd that it was done and then still asked me if I wanted to close it. So now we'll install Management Studio, and just in case, looks like there's a bit of a delay there. And go ahead and install. Yes. Sorry, just in case you need to make sure you have the exact versions I'm using. 2.1.1 is the pandas. And we can go ahead. Oh, and I need to install the Python extension, so I have nifty autocomplete, syntax highlighting, all that good stuff. While that's going, I'll just be risky and do it without that. SPD. And This was that second window that opened. We can just go ahead and close that. All right, so we should be just about ready. And what we're going to do is first we want to create an engine. Create engine. And let me just peek at my notes here. And we'll go through a little bit of this real quick. Oh, I don't have bidirectional copy and paste with my VM at the moment. So I'll just type this out. That might be better. So we are going to use mssql+pyodbc, and this VM is called Windows PC. By default, when you install SQL Server onto a machine, the first instance is always going to take on the name of the PC, the server that you're installing it on. And then your subsequent installs of SQL Server instance, not databases. There is a difference. Database is in the instance. Instances are its own SQL Server, and those can be named instances. Sorry if that's a little bit confusing, but you can just kind of wave your hand at that. The database we're going to create is going to be called test, and we are going to use a trusted connection, which is just my user authenticating to Windows to have access to SQL Server. If you were using a SQL Server account that isn't on the host machine, you would want to put in that username and password in this connection string, and I'll try to remember to make an example of that and put it down in the comments. And trust connection, yes, and we want to use the SQL Server Native Client 11, which is the driver, and you will not have that on Windows by default, but it is installed with SQL Server. If you're doing this at a later date, check here and adjust the connection string accordingly. And the way we're going to put spaces in, we're going to use the plus sign, and let's see, SQL Server Native Client, and I'm using 11.0, and this should have driver like that. All right. Okay, and I'm going to save this. It's kind of funny that when you install SQL Server, it doesn't make you restart, but when you use Management Studio, it does. So that should just take a moment here. All right. Let's see. Hopefully that's the application, not the installer. I guess that's going to take a moment to come up. We can start Visual Studio Code while we're waiting. There it is. And if you see my username, and then that's the PC, the server name is taking on the name of the machine. And here, if we look at databases, we have our system databases, things that come with SQL Server. We're just going to right click and create that database that we already specified, and we'll just call it test. Again, I don't believe this is these directories for the data and the logs is deleted when you uninstall SQL Server, so I'll probably want to make note of that too, although if you just delete Microsoft SQL Server directory, that'll take care of those. All right. And we can just make a new query. And we can test this real quick. Seems like it worked okay. So let's make a quick test.csv. I really need to get more creative with my names. Test CSV, test.py, and the database is test. Awesome. Name, age, date. We'll say Mike. 26. 2023, doesn't matter. Amanda, 34. And this is the best I could come up with on the fly. And we'll just do df equals pd, because we're using pandas, read CSV, and test.csv is what we'll want to read. And once we have that read in, we can easily do to SQL. And first argument here, we are going to give it a string that is the name of the table. Test table, a little bit better. And we will want to pass the connection, which in our case is the SQLAlchemy engine. We called engine up here. And you also want to pass the method, which is the method it will get inserted. Will give me autocomplete. I believe it's replace, fail, and append. So I'm going to do replace, saying if it exists, go ahead and replace the table. Append would append those records. So yeah, let's see if it works. Method equals replace. Let's see, SQLAlchemy to SQL method. Oh, that's just gonna. No, it didn't spell SQLAlchemy correct. Wow, Edge needs to really calm down. And actually, it's a pandas method, so we will want to check the documentation there. Method. None multi. Oh, I was thinking of if exists. Sorry, I was using the wrong argument there. If exists. One equal. All right, we should be good now. And if we go back and look at tables, we have our test table here. And we can see that we have inserted those. It has an index number there. Probably not what we want. Should have expanded this before. And you can highlight, execute, and it'll just execute those. And we can go ahead and run that again. The table's gone because we dropped it. And here we could do index equals false if we did not want that index inserted as well. And if we come back, oh, I should have refreshed that. I want to show that it is in fact gone, and then it magically appears when we run our code. Well, not magically, you know, we're creating it. So that table is gone. And now if we refresh, it's there. And because it automatically generated this with the column names, index is no longer there. We see our data. And if we look at our columns, the data is actually a varchar. And that is because that is how pandas is reading in our data. We could fix that with a quick conversion to date time. Let's see, PD dot date time, and give it that column again. And if we go back, you can see we have date time now. All right. So that about covers it. Again, if you were going to be using SQL Server authentication, you would make a login here and then pass their credentials in your connection string. And let's see, if you wanted to add some automation, actually, before we do that, if it exists, append. I'm gonna run this a few times real quick. And you see it is appending the data there. And we don't have any constraints like primary keys or things like that that would prevent that from duplicating records. If you wanted to add some automation, I have a love-hate relationship with Task Scheduler. It is good for what it is. This is how you would schedule tasks to be run on Windows. And you have this on Windows Server and things like that. Run whether user is logged in or not. If you were executing Python code, you would want to make a user other than yourself, a service account that's specifically to run this. And maybe I shouldn't have gone down this path. There are lots of gotchas. Triggers, that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, whether you want to run it daily, weekly, one time, that's where you set your schedule. Actions, you would want to give the path to your Python script, or actually you would want to give the path to where Python's installed. In our case, it is installed as our user, so we're going to drill down and let's see, I believe. App data, There we go. And as we drill down, there we see Python. And that should be an exe. Let me just double check. Okay, yeah, so that is Python. And that's annoying. We're going to want the absolute path. If you have this as installed for all users, so Python is installed on system, you would want that as a system variable, and then you could probably use just Python there, but again, maybe not. Test.py, start in. Again, you can have some issues there with if you just gave it the name of your script and started it in the same directory where your script lives, then that should work. Again, you might have to do some Googling when that breaks. So I'm just going to say OK. I'm just going to give it a schedule just so you can see. You know what, I'm not going to make everybody wait. I'll just say OK. Let me use the word test again. Not a good idea to run with the highest privileges. But sometimes you'll need to do that. For local testing. Don't do that in production. Okay, so let's go ahead and drop this table. All right, so it doesn't exist, and we can come back here and just run. This doesn't like to flip back to its actual status. It should be done by now, and indeed it's ready. And when we run this now, it's not there. So let's jump in and see what might have gone wrong there. That should be fine. It's probably with our actions. So we're going to edit that. And indeed, I believe that should be documents. And it's going to ask for our password again. All right, let's try that again. Again, it's line, it's done. And might as well show you this, which is kind of a nice shortcut that I've used before and also good for testing. So if we go here to actions and we go ahead and grab that, and we are going to pass a command line argument. Let's see, where'd that go? And we're going to save this as example. Haha, I didn't use test. All right. And I'm going to change the name, and it's actually going to be .bat for batch, which lets Windows know it's an executable file. And just so we can see what might be going on, we're going to add a pause here, which if you didn't, it would get an error message, disappear real quick with pause. Kind of helps you troubleshoot those issues. All right, so that seemed to have gone off without a hitch, and they are inserted. So let's come back here. Oh, add programs or scripts. Okay, so I should have put my script up here. And let's see. Let's see if that got it to what it wanted to do. All right. So, not sure on that, but just from using Task Scheduler over the years, I know it can be real finicky. So the program was probably starting somewhere where maybe it wanted me to explicitly elevate my privileges. There's a lot of troubleshooting. You can look through logs, but that configuration is working, so take the win. And we can just run that on demand, and now it's working. Another thing, when we made the batch file, you could just give the path to that. So let me go ahead and show that real quick. Hopefully that works. And we're going to just kill that, get rid of that. Okay. Not sure if that's where it's executing by default, but that would do it probably in System 32. Seems like that would have some restrictions on it. All right. And maybe if we said run with the highest privileges, that would have worked as well. Not sure. But again, not a good idea in production. So one more time. And this time we will run this job, and it's running the batch script. Oh, that is going to run forever because I still have the pause in there. So real quick, let's go ahead and edit that. And let's see what's going on. Maybe because it's trying to run it in that directory and it doesn't like it. Actually, we can do this. We can do that, and we will just pipe it out to an error file. because that one was still open. I don't think so. No, not print. Looks like I needed to enable the history on that. Oh, probably because of my Windows edition. All right. Let's see, that might be because of where it's starting in. Let's see if we can fix that real quick. And we're just going to have this script change directory into my documents directory. And wouldn't necessarily need to be my documents directory, anywhere where my rights are a little bit more open. Okay. So that's what it was. So sorry to ramble on. Hopefully this, I don't know, maybe that was worth it. Maybe it was a good example of how picky task scheduler can be. Again, something great to be familiar with. Another tool in the belt is always fun. You could definitely build this out, maybe not on your local machine. So say you want to download data from an API or download a CSV Parquet file, read it into a pandas data frame, do some transformations. The sky's the limit with anything with automations, data engineering. Just has to do with the tools at your disposal and how familiar you are with those. So I hope you found this useful, and I will see you in another video.